And so when they don't recognize themselves, because this was brought up during one of the Occupy things where they were arrested and refused to identify themselves, and yet they were still put in jail for at least 24 hours.
The law is they can only hold you up to 24 to 48 hours without proving your identity. If you carry no ID whatsoever, if they cannot establish who you are in 24 to 48 hours, they have to let you go.
Again, most people don't know the laws, number one, and they fear the police, and they definitely fear the government. And so the more people would be invested in finding out the laws, seeing how our constitutional rights we really no longer have, but they find out about the laws, that would probably help them to determine whether they want to get involved or if they're going to stay quiet. But not getting involved and staying quiet is only going to lead to more. So let's go back a little bit further. Let's go back to Kennedy's assassination, for example. Okay? There's been a lot of papers written about that. And one of the people that I had on the show at one time started to talk about how it was a big cover-up by our government. And they tried to explain why it was a cover-up. I'm not so sure they explained it totally, but in your research, I know you've researched the assassination of JFK, and there's a lot of interesting facts that's never been brought up. Why was he assassinated?
He was shot point-blank range by William Greer, the CIA limo driver who fired the fatal shot with a gun that had a recoilless shellfish toxin in it that blew off the top of his head, and that is why Jacqueline Kennedy tried to run out of the back of the vehicle, and the other secret agent, service agent, tried to bring her back into the vehicle because she saw William Greer, the driver, fire the shot that killed her husband.
Now, that's not out there any place. So how can people find that that might be true?
I've got videos that show in slow motion the actual motions of the driver, even though they doctored the Zapruder film that came out years later, it still shows the mannerisms of the driver.
And where can they look at that?
They can look at that on youtube.com/WEBFLIXSGUY.
Say it again.
youtube.com/WEBFLIXSGUY.
Why did they want him assassinated?
The reason they wanted John assassinated was because they had just set up the Triangle Crescent drug ring in Vietnam with the help of Bhumibol Adulyadej, Barack Obama's father, and they wanted to get the drug ring going, the network around the world, so that way they can take the drugs, put them in pharmaceuticals, and now you, unsuspecting American, have opium in all of your pharmaceuticals, making you a drug addict unbeknownst to you.
And so if there's any pharmacists out there and you would like to call in to make a comment, the number to call is 347-884-8195. That's 347-884-8195. Because I know that a lot of people are going to be listening to this and they're going to go, man, this man is totally off the wall. But I'm telling you, if you follow the websites he's given to you, and we're going to repeat all of them before the show is over, you will find out, if you go there, there's a lot of information that can actually unfold, and you can see some of the things that we are talking about. And again, a lot of people are going to sit here and not like what we have to say, because my thing was not to bash anybody, and believe me, this isn't bashing. This is actually trying to bring out the truth about what our government, along with several other governments, all have in common, and how they set different things up so they can continue to rule. You've all heard the little story about the New World Order coming in. Well, it's not really new. It's been around for a long time with the thought, but for most people, the New World Order, I think, is new to them. So let's go back now and let's talk about
before we do, Nancy,
go ahead.
I like to add one thing about how I know what I know about the drugs. I went a number of years back, and you're aware of this, to take care of my brother to become a power of attorney before my brother died. He was in the hospital, very sick. I went to care for my brother, and the medication he was on, I was caring for him every day, convinced me that I could not withdraw him from all these pharmaceuticals. I had an argument with his doctor, and I says, you need to look at these pharmaceuticals you're giving my brother and test them, because I believe that my brother is like a junkie hooked on these things, and you are not doing your job. Your license on the wall says you've got a license to practice. Stop practicing on my freaking brother. My brother died not long after that, so I have first-hand information knowledge about what I saw my brother go through because of the opium that was based in the narcotics that the hospital was giving him.
I think if people looked up the information of the medications that they're on the internet, they'd be quite surprised to find out what it really is. Like Ritalin, for example, is really, it's like a synthetic heroin that you're giving to your kids on a constant basis for you who think that they need to have it because they've been labeled with ADD, ADHD, or they're problem children. You'd be surprised the drugs that they put people on, let alone children. Let's go back again a little bit further. Let's talk about when 9/11 occurred, and I'm going to make a couple statements that's probably going to aggravate people, but that's okay. When 9/11 occurred, it was kind of like everybody was so surprised, except for our government and the people who brought it down. They showed different videos. There was one video that was shown, and I mean it was only shown one time in the entire time that they were showing videos. And it was a video of actually Osama bin Laden, who entered into, I guess, a higher-up's tent. And the first thing, and this was, it was explained by a person who spoke their language, did not work for any government agents. It was just a normal, everyday person who happened to see this video who wrote this in. And the video said, Osama bin Laden said, as he walked into the tent, we were told it was going to happen on Thursday. Now, that doesn't sound like to me he ordered it to be done. That video was shown one time and one time only. And I watched because I personally do not believe that Osama bin Laden is the one who ordered it. Do I think he trained them? Yes, with our government's help and a few other governments. But I don't believe he's the one who ordered it. They had many, many opportunities to capture Osama bin Laden. There are many stories about him being out there. One story is that in the year 2000, he was actually already had died or was about to die because he had a very rare kidney disease. And then there was other stories about him that came out that showed him in different locations. And then there were stories that came out that actually was told by some soldiers that they actually knew exactly where he was, but they were told to stand down. And then there was a story that came out that said Bush, who already knew he was dead, was going to show that he's the one who had captured Osama bin Laden because his body had been on ice for a very long time. But a news reporter got hold of it and put it out there, so it wasn't for him to do. And then we have Obama come in and do this raid, and they bury his body at sea. A lot of these do not jive. If you want people to believe these stories, then they need to be made more believable. The reason for burying him at sea, There were several, but one was because they didn't want to honor him and have that mosque built where 9/11 occurred. What do you think about those stories?
Well, let me tell you the real reason he was buried at sea. For those of you listening, I apologize for the crosstalk, but when I speak, a lot of people get nervous. And here is the real reason why I am owed $25 million. I told people back in April of 2011 that I was coming to New York and then going to Washington to collect the $25 million for information for the reward and capture of Osama bin Laden. I got on a train in Dunsmuir, California, came across to the East Coast. I called FBI Director Robert Mueller, and I told him that I'm coming to Washington to collect the $25 million reward, and I'll be there on May 2nd on Monday. On that weekend, I bought my ticket to go to Washington, D.C., to arrive there by 11 in the morning, and the day before, they came up with that BS raid where they killed Obama, they killed the Osama at sea with no body to be found because they knew I was coming to Washington to make a big stink to collect the $25 million reward.
So, was Osama bin Laden really killed at that time? Had he died because of his disease? What is the story there?
The story is, Benazir Bhutto said in early 2000 to David Frost on the air with David Frost that the real Osama bin Laden died. He died because of his disease, and soon as Bhutto went public with David Frost, she was then put under house arrest in Pakistan, and about 6 weeks later, she was murdered.
So they stopped that story real quick.
Yes, they murdered her.
Is there any proof, any place that you can give out where they can look that up?
You can go right on the internet and put in Benazir Bhutto and David Frost and say Bin Laden interview, and it's still there for people to see.
See, because they have this way of getting rid of videos and interviews that they don't want people to see, which they have done to several people, including yourself. So I would do the research that he is telling you to do. It's probably going to surprise you a whole bunch. And if it doesn't surprise you, I'd be probably surprised that it doesn't. But we're going to go to a little bit of change right now because we're going to talk about a couple other things, and then we will give out the websites again that you can go check everything that was talked about during the first hour of the show. But I want to talk about the Haiti earthquake, Stephen, okay? The reason why I want to talk about that is because when that earthquake happened, I said to a lot of people, I said, I wonder what Haiti has that makes our government want to be in control of it. And everybody said to me, Nancy, you're absolutely crazy. I said, there's got to be something there. I said, now, I said to people that they wanted something, and here's why. Because when Katrina hit the United States, and the whole southern part was just totally devased, and just having a really hard time, it took our military at least a week to get down there and put it under military charge, let's say. But when the Haiti earthquake occurred, within 24 hours, we already had the military there. They were already under military control. And when I heard that, I said, there's something there. And then I got a few more impressions, and I said, it probably has a lot of oil and gold. Well, about 2 weeks ago is that on nsm.com, and you can go back and look it up, there was a statement that came out that said that Haiti had found 20 million or billion, maybe $1 billion worth of gold.